Hey, what's up guys, Totallydubbed here, and today I'm doing a video review on the BenQ EX3501R. This is a massive 35-inch Ultra WQHD monitor. That means that it runs at a resolution of 3440 x 1440p. It runs at a quoted refresh rate of 100Hz, has a VA panel, AMD FreeSync, a 1800R curvature, and HDR. That's a lot of features. Now this monitor comes in around £750 and in the US can be found for around $850. Links will be down in the description below, including a link to the specs. In terms of its competitors, the AOC AG352UCG is also a similar monitor in this class, around the same price as well, but that has NVIDIA G-Sync over AMD FreeSync. There's a Samsung as well, which is relatively old now, has speakers, but doesn't have NVIDIA G-Sync or anything like that built in, so just bear that in mind. Links of those two will be in the description below, including my full review on YouTube, so do check that out. Now let's just quickly talk about the features that it's got, including the build quality and the design. So in terms of features, you've got two HDMI 2.0 ports, one DisplayPort 1.4, two USB 3.0 hub Type A ports, one USB Type C port which can be used to drive display to the monitor, and then you've got a 3.5mm headphone jack for audio output. Now this monitor does not have any speakers, so do bear that in mind, but you can output sound via that 3.5mm jack, and you can adjust the volume via the OSD. Now the monitor's build quality is actually very nice. It's got a 1000R curvature, which is great in order to add that slight bit of immersion. Not to say I'm overly excited about curved screens, but nevertheless it's just something that's included. The only problem with this is that due to the backlight technology that BenQ have used, you've got a slight tail off on either side of the monitor. The slight tail off means that if you're looking at the monitor from very extreme angles, you will notice that the kind of text rolls off on the side. Something I've noticed on monitors in the past, especially big, large curved screen monitors like this one. It's just something to bear in mind. Not something that you're going to really notice if you're standing or sitting straight dead on the monitor, but something you'll notice if you're shifting around. Other than that, the three-side borderless design is beautiful to see. It means that the monitor seems like it takes less space up on the desk. It's got a solid metal stand, which means that the monitor is pretty sturdy on your desk. It also has height adjustment and can be tilted. However, there's no pivot adjustment, or it can't be rotated either. That's mainly because of the design of the stand. I would have liked to see it pivot, because that can be quite useful if you want to watch a movie or you want to show a friend or a colleague or whatever like that, just to quickly pivot. I would have liked to see that. Other than that, the monitor has a solid black design, and it's got a little sensor at the bottom as well, bottom middle as well, which I'll get into in just a bit. Now, speaking of that little sensor and just generally of the OSD, let's talk about that. Now, the OSD is a little bit primitive looking, and the buttons are an absolute pain to press. When I say pain to press, it's because they're not properly labeled, so you're doing sometimes a bit of guesswork. Nevertheless, the buttons... once you get used to the buttons, then you've got a full set of controls. Within the display, you've got PIP and PBP, which is quite useful if you want to use multiple different displays and different pictures. Within the picture setting, you've got brightness, which I've got set to 20 right now, but I usually use it around 80 to 100. All the regular options as well with AMA, which I've got set to premium. I'll get into that in my gaming section in just a bit. In the picture advanced section, you've got different picture modes. Now, I like the fact they've actually included a HDR mode, and I'm sorry that ramps up the brightness. That's why I reduced the brightness for the video. But the HDR mode brings down the gamut, which is quite useful because HDR content does really require that. You've got a dedicated Srgb, various gamer and customized profiles with the MBook profile as well. Overall, it's great to see all these options included. Then you've got low blue light mode, super resolution, and also HDMI RGB PC range, which is quite good. Right now I've got an auto detect, which should be the full range of RGB. I've got it currently connected via HDMI, so that's why the option is there. You've got the B.I plus option as well, which is that little sensor. Over here you can enable it, which will give you the light meter and the sensor sensitivity that you can customize. I usually use that off, but it's useful to have it if you are going to be using it for long durations. Other than that, audio settings and then the system settings, you can customize the keys, the OSD, the configuration of each port as well. And you can also set the DisplayPort version. So over here, you see right now I've got it on 1.2, but it's got a 1.4 port supposedly according to the specs. In terms of the information, you can get a breakdown of what you're running at, the optimal resolution, and if HDR is on and off. The HDR notification is actually quite useful because then it can give you an idea if you're running HDR. So that's the OSD settings, and now let's talk about the picture quality. Now, before jumping into HDR, I just want to talk about the general picture quality. Now, this has a VA panel, and I must say, out the box, I felt that the colors looked fantastic. With a quick reset and not even a play around with the settings, just going on picture mode or on sRGB mode, I felt that out the box, BenQ have done a beautiful job. The colors are vibrant, they've got a fantastic contrast, the white point is quite good as well. It's not overly saturated, nor is it like got a film that looks washed out. Dark blacks could be a little bit better, it could be a little bit more black rather than a little bit of a greyish tinge. But other than that, overall, I must say, especially as a gaming type monitor, or one that can be used for gaming, I must say I'm very impressed out the box. Obviously, it's a very expensive monitor, so you do expect the very best. But that said, you have to bear in mind that the resolution you're getting over here and the amount of features that you're getting thrown in as well. So overall, very impressed. Now, just to back up my claims, I put it through the i1 Display Pro calibrator in order to test it out. I also got its sRGB value. Now, its sRGB value, I'm just going to just zoom in over here so bring you guys closer, you guys can see. It hit a 99.1 sRGB gamut coverage, which is a gamut volume of 120%. It actually did relatively well given the fact that it was calibrated for sRGB via the OSD on Adobe RGB and DCI-P3. So overall, those results are actually quite impressive. In terms of the actual color accuracy, it's not the best, but that said, given the monitor's the purpose and the size of it, it's actually not bad with an average LTE of 2.6 and a maximum of 4.93. It misses out on the blacks, which is what I actually found with my own eyes, and in certain colors it's a little bit off, but it's nothing to be overly worried about. Of course, if you're a professional video editor and photo editor, it's not a monitor you'd get anyway, but it's just something to bear in mind. On that contrast ratio that I mentioned before, it hits a staggering 1960 to 1, which is very impressive, and the overall brightness at 100% brightness on the OSD is around 340 nits, which is plenty bright in a bright sunlit room. I don't think you'd want it any brighter than that. So overall, the color accuracy is good, and the color gamut is good as well. In terms of the uniformity, on the other hand, now given the fact that it's a gaming monitor, or one that's aimed at gaming, I didn't expect it to hit like a professional grade brightness uniformity. The brightness uniformity on my panel, and this is complete panel lock, wasn't great on the left hand side. Again, I've noticed this on pretty much every single curved ultra wide monitor. Brightness uniformity is a little bit off, so those people who are going to be asking me about backlight bleed and whatnot, you're going to be having to expect that on a big monitor. It's literally lottery of which one you get. On this particular model that I got, it has a minus 16.9% variance from the center point, which is relatively large if you're going to be using it for photo editing and whatnot. If you're going to be using it for gaming or watching movies and stuff, I don't think you're going to really bother too much or worry too much about that. It's not noticeable, at least to my eyes, and I've gone through about 100 plus monitors. So there we go. Now I want to talk about the HDR element, and then I'll go into the gaming element as well. So first of all, HDR. How does HDR work? Now, the implementation over Windows is a little bit hit and miss. So first of all, you want to set it on your, at least I've got the NVIDIA GTX 1080. So you want to go onto NVIDIA's control panel, set it to one of the default resolution, not a custom resolution, so 60 Hertz. And then you will be having the option to enable HDR. So as I said, I've got it on HDMI, but you can work it on DisplayPort as well. And if you saw on the bottom right hand side, got a little notification saying, hey, your HDR is on. Now, the first thing you'll notice is the colors are completely skewed, and yes, that is the case with Windows 10. This is what happens. But then once you launch a game, then you will see the benefits of HDR. In my case, I had Shadow Warrior 2. It worked flawlessly, and the amount of games you can actually play on HDR, again, are also limited. So HDR works flawlessly. I can confirm that. No problems whatsoever. However, there was something I do want to mention, it's not HDR related, it's to do with the refresh rate. Now out the box it had 60 Hz and 100 Hz refresh, which you'll be able to see over here on the NVIDIA control panel. If I just take you guys a little bit closer, you'll be able to see the two drop down menu of 60 Hz and a 100 Hz. Now what's interesting here is that when I set it to 100 Hz, I had a lot of frame skipping. Now I'm going to just show you guys what frame skipping does. And I'm just going to open up the browser, and you will be potentially able to see, well not potentially, you will be able to see that the camera is picking up every other frame is absolutely missing. Now I noticed this even when I was just gaming, so to my naked eye I did notice it as well. So it has frame skipping at 100 Hz. But is this something new? Absolutely not. I've seen it before on ultra wide monitors as well. What's very interesting here is that one, I don't have an AMD card, so I can't test it with AMD FreeSync or test if it's running 100 Hz via AMD, because in the past I found that that was the case. I needed an AMD card in order to hit its max refresh rate. But oddly enough, when I had it running on a custom resolution, so there is a kind of workaround fix on the other monitors if you use CRU or use NVIDIA control panel, you can set it to 99 Hz or 96 Hz or whatever Hertz you want, and suddenly you won't get any frame skipping. Very odd, I don't know why it is, but 100 Hz on my NVIDIA GTX 1080, it starts frame skipping. And it is absolutely noticeable when it comes to games. It's definitely something that you should avoid. So if it was me, if I had an NVIDIA card like I do right now, I would set it to 96 Hz. You're only losing 4 frames, which is not a big deal, and you will avoid any frame skipping, and you'll be able to enjoy a relatively fast refresh rate. So anyway, this is something I should point out because my tests were conducted at 96 Hz, which I'm going to set just now, rather than 100 Hz. Again, it's not something I can comment on for AMD users, but just something to bear in mind. Now when it came to competitive gaming such as Counter-Strike, I felt that the monitor was actually very good, actually surprisingly good. So most ultra-wide monitors are really not made for competitive gaming. In this case, this monitor was actually really well equipped in terms of its response time and just generally with the inverse ghosting. So some monitors have a lot of inverse ghosting, whereas this monitor on AMA set to premium, which is the maximum mode, so overdrive at extreme for example, the ghosting is minimal. So even though there is some ghosting that takes place, and that bottle was just annoying me, I'm sorry, but even though there is some ghosting that takes place, for competitive gamers I think it'll be actually acceptable. If however you're going to be a casual gamer, then what you might find, like on a game like Fortnite or Arma or something like that, you'll find that the smearing might be a bit too much for your eyes to take. In this case, I would set the AMA down to high. Therefore, you get like a kind of blend between the response time and the inverse ghosting that you can actually notice. For competitive gamers, as I said, put it to the fastest premium one, and just accept that you're going to get a little bit of inverse ghosting. Now, in terms of the input lag, I think it was actually very good. It could be slightly better, but among ultra-wide monitors, I think it's one of the best ones given the monitor class. Of course, it's not going to be the best, fastest monitor in the world. In comparison to like a TN panel or a class-leading IPS panel, but nevertheless for an ultra-wide VA panel it actually does a very good job. Obviously the refresh rate we talked about before, that just depends on what it is. Right now I'm running at 220 FPS. I'm using with black borders at the moment, just because of the GPU settings, but nevertheless it's absolutely fine. And when it comes to gaming, 96 Hz is a great addition over 60 Hz, which 60 Hz just literally hurts my eyes now each time I play it. So when I'm playing on a laptop or something, I literally can't hit the shots I do on my 144 Hz monitor, or let's say if you're playing on this, or it's just around 100 Hz monitor. So definitely a nice little step up over 60 Hz. So gaming wise, definite massive thumbs up from me. It's good in terms of casual gaming, but it's also good for those who are going to be using it for competitive gaming as well. So it's more so that suits off for both people. So overall, what do I think of the monitor? Well, there's a lot to talk about here. It's got a good panel, it's got a good response time, it's got relatively good color reproduction, a decent brightness uniformity, it's got HDR compatibility, it's also got a curvature, AMD FreeSync built in. It's literally got everything that you'd really want in terms of an overall monitor, both from gaming side of view or actually just looking at it. It looks beautiful as well in terms of the design of it, the build quality and the features it offers. So if you're looking for an ultra-wide monitor, and if you're not too bothered about NVIDIA G-Sync, which is what the AOC monitor offers, then I would definitely pick this. I should also mention the AOC monitor did have some problem with inverse ghosting on the strong settings, whereas this monitor doesn't. So for competitive gamers, this would be the best monitor made for you. And yes, it's over 1080p, meaning it's 1440p resolution. You're going to get a lot better image. Of course, you should bear in mind that you're going to need a GPU to power that, such as my GTX 1080 or similar. So just bear that in mind before purchasing the monitor. If you're going to be running on a GTX 960 or, I don't know, AMD 270X, then reconsider buying the monitor before upgrading. Upgrade your GPU first before getting a new monitor. So there we go, guys. I can definitely recommend it. Massive thumbs up from me. And speaking of thumbs up, definitely do give me a like, subscribe, favorite and share and all that good stuff. Don't have to always say that, but it's just a nice reminder because it always helps the channel grow. So there we go, guys. I've been Totally Dubbed. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this monitor. Take care, guys. Totally Dubbed out. Bye bye.